Hello and welcome to the Slingshot Channel. Today we want to look at how to properly sharpen a knife. Now, of course, one of the easiest methods is just to take a stone and then just go ahead and do this manually. And actually, if you are really good at these things, you can achieve pretty amazing results with that method. But of course, it takes practice. And the problem is that the angle will probably never be 100% correct. Therefore, there are great helpers that can help you sharpen your knife properly. This, for example, is Spyderco's Sharp Maker, and actually you have two different angles, and the idea is that you simply just take your knife and hold it straight down and then kind of grind it along the edges, and then there are different devices. This is very coarse diamond, but there are also very fine ones. And after all, this is supposed to give you a nice edge. And it may work, but it's not my preferred method. My preferred method is using the Gatco sharpener system that I probably bought 20 years ago, but I understand it's still available pretty much unchanged today. And the idea of this thing is that you clamp in the knife and then you have different angle slots. So for this one I would just use a medium angle, and then you simply grind away like this. And this makes sure that your angle will always stay the same. So it will never change. And you can simply flip it around and do this from the other side. There's no scratches on the blade, and of course you can achieve very high sharpness, specifically if you go finer in the stones. Only thing I changed on this original setup is that I used a little bit of aluminum as a backplate, because it was otherwise a little bit too wobbly and I like things stable. Not sure if it's still the same, but that is what I bought 20 years ago. There's a little bit of oil that you put on the stones for a better surface. And there is one that is designed for serrated edges. And then there's 4 different types for normal blades. And this is coarse, medium, fine and super fine. So once you're done with the last one, your edge will be razor sharp. Before we start on the serious sharpening, there's one thing that I always recommend. Get a magnifier set, because otherwise it is almost impossible to really see if you are there or if it needs more sharpening. It is very hard to see this with the naked eye, and therefore magnifiers do a great job. And I actually tested a few products, and I'm going to show you 2 that I really like. And by the way, this is not sponsored. I bought a boatload of different magnifiers on Amazon, paid full price, and I'm only showing you the 2 products that I like the most. This one is really cool because it has a built-in light, and the light can cycle between different modes, and there is even like a jeweler's light included. The magnifiers have different strengths. So there is the main one, and then there is one that is a lot more magnification, and then you have the jeweler's one, which is like straight through the handle here, and there is even a focus wheel on this. So let me show you this with my newest acquisition, a beautiful Spyderco knife. It's actually in a shemp design. I think it is shaped a little bit like a medieval dagger, and that is why they call it the EuroBlade. Actually, it is very, very sharp. Always like to use the paper test, because that can really tell you a lot about the sharpness of a knife. It's supposed to cut the paper and not tear it. Let's see how the Spyderco is doing. It's doing great. Yeah, very sharp knife. Let's look at how they ground the blade. Yeah, and then you can really see it in great magnification. And you can see it's like an angled grinding, and actually it looks like very little sawtooth. I don't think that you can see this on the camera though. Let's try. This little device, I think this is much like a mixture between a microscope and a magnifier. And actually it's very cool because it has built-in lighting, and you can also focus. So if you want to focus on something, you can really see how dirty my finger is. And you can also change the intensity of the light. And it even has a recording function, so I can record video or take photos. Pretty cool. The only thing that I don't like on it is that it usually comes with a very, very flimsy little stand. Therefore, don't laugh, it looks primitive, but it really is functional. I built my own. And you see it has heavy wood so it doesn't shake. But it also has the possibility to mount it in different positions, so I can slide it up and down, depending on how close I want to come to the object that I want to look at. And this is actually very handy, and it also is sturdy enough so that if I click on it to take a picture, it stays in focus. Okay, here we have it. Let's adjust the light. Yeah, here you can clearly see how it's ground. Very even, but you can still see the marks from the grinding. Yeah, that's how a professionally machined edge looks like. Very, very, very sharp. What is most important on a sharp edge is that it really has this kind of wedge shape. This means that you want a V that is completely even. I mean, there are grindings where there is a change in angle, and that is also sturdy, but if you really want sharpness, then you want a perfect wedge. And that is not easy to achieve, because with the naked eye it can easily happen that you're grinding along the sides of the blade, never reaching the edge. And then of course there will be no sharpening effect. Therefore, magnifiers are absolutely necessary to make sure that you really hit it right. Okay, back to the sharpening. And then I want to show you the second invention of mine that I made for this little knife hack. The problem with these things is that it is very time intensive to give the knife a basic grinding. This means that once you have achieved the right angle, then going finer is a very, very quick procedure. But this first angle on a knife with a thicker blade can take ages. And of course it's taking longer the sharper you want to get it, because then you have to use one of the more flat angles here. So the higher you are, the easier it is. But here you have to remove a lot of material. And even with the coarse stone, that can easily take you 2 or 3 hours on a longer knife with a thicker blade. Therefore, as I am really lazy, I invented something. The angle keeping power grinder.
Let me show you its features.
So as you see, I took a normal power file, very cheap model for just 45 euros on Amazon. And then I attached a kind of guiding rod to it that works much like the guiding rod on a stone like this from Gatco. And if you look closely, then you will see that the grinding edge here, where the belt runs, is exactly parallel to the original stone. So this means that the angle of both tools will be exactly the same. So we can do the coarse work with the belt and the fine work with the stones. And the most time-consuming part, the basic grinding, so that the angles are there, is now done within minutes with this tool. Okay, now the final test. This is one of the most miserable knives. I have to say, I borrowed it several times and did almost idiotic things with it. Therefore, the tip broke off and the edge really isn't sharp anymore. Let's abuse it some more before we give it an overhaul. First, let's see if we can carve metal from a file. Maybe hacking it. Yeah, it definitely isn't healthy for the blade, I think. Let's see if we can hack through a nail. Not bad. I mean, look at that. Okay. That definitely isn't bad steel. Look what happened to the nail. Pretty cool, huh? But of course this blade suffered. Alright, that's a fairly miserable edge now. Let's do the paper test. Pretty much like a saw blade. Yeah, that's what I thought. It needs overhauling. First we will repair the broken off tip. And we do this with the mini drill. Okay, now the edge is of course a little bit more narrow, but it has no more serious nicks in it. And of course it's now super, super, super blunt. So even if you wanted to, you could not really cut yourself with this anymore. Now comes the sharpening. Okay, now we have the basic grinding ready, and now we're starting with the stones. Okay, now our little edge is ready. Let's see how it cuts. Wow! Amazing. You see that? It's just incredibly sharp. I think this knife is now a lot sharper than it ever used to be. Like ever. Okay, let's look at it under the magnifier. There you can see the edge. See how fine it is? Yeah, taking this edge. See, this was the original grinding. See, it's a lot finer than the original grinding. Very, very decent edge. Now I could have achieved the same with just the stones, but it would have taken me several hours to get this kind of angle on this blade. It would be very, very time consuming. So I think this is a cool little invention, and of course it didn't destroy anything on my power file. I can just remove this with the two screws here, and then it's just a regular power file. And I think this would also work really great for swords, because what's time consuming on knives takes forever on swords. Anyway, I hope you like this, because that's it for today. Thanks and bye bye.